When we think about the concept of health span and lifespan, wellness and longevity, it's important to understand many products and many interventions are starting to be put in the form of content without any real data to suggest, well, does this really give me longevity? And the only place that we can legitimately say there is evidence to show that people live longer is looking at blue zones. And blue zones got popularized years ago, and what was found is that there seemed in 5 different areas to have a disparate number of people that lived to over 100 and a very low number of people that died in middle age of the things that we die of in the United States. And where are those places? Well, there's Sardinia, Italy, Okinawa, Japan, a area in Greece, Aria, and of all places, Loma Linda, California. We have one in the United States. And by looking at the populations, even though they're culturally very different, what was found were that there were really 9 common themes in people who lived past 100. And so, for the sake of helping us all live to 100, I will discuss what those 9 things are. So by studying these populations, there were 9 common themes that were found among all of these folks that lived past 100. And what they are, I mean, they're largely free and can be incorporated into everyone's life. And first and foremost was to move. And it's not necessarily that these folks ran ultra marathons or competed in triathlons. They're people that just moved every day. They walked. For instance, after meals, they would go up and they'd have a family walk. They would have natural flexibility. So there's a difference between static stretching and mobility. And so sitting in a crouched position, for instance, will open the hips and keep you more flexible. As we get older, our bodies become less flexible and more rigid. And the consequence of that is that we then don't walk in the way that our musculoskeletal system is designed. And by now walking in a different manner that's not taking advantage of billions of years of evolution, we create strain on our body. We also create frailty. And frailty is one of the most common causes of death in the aged population. The second area is purpose. And having a why. And I've often seen that in adolescence, and that why, not having a purpose or a reason to get out of bed in the morning, really impacts people, I believe. You know, people say that if you find a job you love, you never work a day in your life, and I believe that's true. That if you lack a purposeful existence, you will age quicker, you'll become more depressed, become more anxious. And when you have a very defined why, and that why doesn't need to be the same why for your entire life. That why can and perhaps should change every 5 years ago. But a purpose-driven life is something that is common among all folks who live in these blue zones. And it's not one purpose that they started out at 8 years old and they have the same purpose for 100 years. It's just that they have a reason for living. And I believe that that is essential to longevity. The third is downshifting. And what downshifting means is that, as a former New Yorker, I can completely get aligned with this, is that in New York, we believed we had a 45-second minute clock. So every 45 seconds, the rest of the world is 15 seconds behind. And that started in the morning and it didn't end until you go to bed. And that pace constantly will really lead to a lot of disadvantageous hormones like the release of cortisol, which gives you belly fat, a constant state of adrenaline or fight or flight for the entire day. I mean, if any of you have been to New York and the light turns green, immediately people are on a horn behind you and they're pissed off. And that period of constant stress really deteriorates the heart, deteriorates the mind, deteriorates the body. And so people in blue zones have what has been described as downshifting. And what that means is periods of napping, periods of prayer, periods of multi-generational families getting together and having a meal with one another, just going for a mindless walk or a hike through the woods. And they've incorporated that into their daily lives. And to have both the period of intensity coupled with the period of downshifting seems to be a balance that we don't often achieve in these non-blue zone areas. So the fourth principle that was discovered was the 80% rule, and that refers to eating. And what's meant by that is that the participants generally eat until they're not full to the brim. They haven't overconsumed, but they eat until they're about 80% to the source of their hunger. And that means they're eating slower. And by eating slower, you become full earlier than if you go to a typical American restaurant, served a big loaf of bread and butter to start your meal, and then a salad, and then you still want your entree, and you end up consuming an exorbitant number of calories. This started in Okinawa, which is one of the blue zones. And the principle, I want to give a proper shout out to my karate sensei who's trained in Okinawa. It's called Hara Hachi Bu, which is the concept of eating until you're 80% full. Now, in addition to eating until you're 80% full, the timing of how you eat is different. And the people who are successful with this tend to have a small meal when they wake up, have their largest meal of the day at lunchtime, and then just have a small consumption for dinner and don't really eat or snack after that. They have their last meal some 6, 7 o'clock at night, and then have nothing to eat until the morning. So that moderates full. That creates, by its nature, caloric restriction, which is important in any diet, and will allow you to consume your nutrients better and improve your digestion, your passage of food, and live longer. The fifth finding is what's called a plant slant. And what that means is that most of the calories that are consumed in these blue zones are plant based. It's not necessarily to a vegan or a restrictive diet, but natural fruits and nuts and vegetables are considered more nutrient dense than meats and fish and chicken. And so meats, particularly pork, are consumed only 3, 4 times a month, and the rest of the diet is predominantly based upon naturally occurring foods that are generally picked from a garden rather than store bought. And there have been many studies and many proponents of a plant based diet. I don't necessarily ascribe to being purely plant based. I do believe that as descendants of carnivores, that meat is important for a great source of protein, for iron, and just to sort of satisfy that internal craving, eating meat and fish. But a plant-based diet or a disparate amount of plant nutrition versus meat has been shown in these areas to improve longevity.